Welcome to episode 30 of Randall Vision. I'm your host, Randall. Today, we have a disaster of an episode for you here. For some reason, I felt like doing this one outside, and it's like cold and snowing, and it's approaching rush hour, so we're going to have some traffic noise in the back. And the topic, I think I'm going to try to be like a little comedic about it, a little funny. That's probably not going to come out very well. This will probably be a little bit of a cringe episode here. Wanted to show off my fabulous do I just got done with here. But it's cold, so I'm probably going to put a hat on in a minute here. All right, so where are we at? Jesus, Superman, and Goku. What do these guys have in common? They're similar stories. I think I know the least amount about the DC Comics Superman. I probably know the most about the lore of Goku. I probably know more about Goku than Jesus. In spite of being raised Catholic. So let's dive into this here. Superman was sent from like a dying planet and wound up on Earth with creatures that looked like him. And he grew up and he figured out that he was different than everybody else, much stronger. And since it was a world that he cared for, he thought it was worth protecting the people in it or whatever. So he was a good guy. Now, Jesus, or man JC, he was brought to Earth. His mother gave birth to him being a virgin because of the Immaculate Reception. I'm a Pittsburgher. Did I get that right? I think it was the Immaculate Reception. And so then he grew up and he was like, hey everybody, I'm the son of God. You should quit being bad people. You should try being good people. And I'm gonna die for all of your sins, and you could just worship me as the symbol of my father or whatever, something like that. I don't know. I like Jesus. Like when I was growing up and learning Catholicism and all that, like some of it missed me, or I misinterpreted it. I thought you were supposed to look at Jesus as a role model. I thought, oh, we should be like this guy. But I think Catholicism or Christianity teaches you that it's almost like a blasphemy to try to be like Jesus, and that you should just be happy with being a sinner, and then when you sin, you pray to God or Jesus for forgiveness, and they set the goalpost as payable on death, with nothing seemingly to strive towards during life. So that's don't worry, I came up with some redemption for that. We'll save that for another day. But now, where does Goku come in here? So, like Superman, he was sent to this planet, but he wasn't sent to save it. He was sent to destroy it. But fortunately for well, I don't think it's this planet. I think DBZ's somewhere. I don't know. Is that Earth? Probably not our Earth. Might be our Earth. I don't know. Anyhow, he was sent to the planet as a baby to destroy it. That when he would grow up and see the light of the moon, he would transform into a mammoth ape and pave the way for an invading army that would, just like the work would be done already by the time the imperialists showed up and they could just claim another planet. But fortunately for us, Goku bumped his head when he was a little boy, got some amnesia, and was raised by a kind old man who, you know, lied to Goku and said that he was his grandfather, not acknowledging Goku's orphanhood. But so eventually, I don't know, they cut off his tail so he'll quit turning into a mammoth ape, and there's some other stuff. But the thing in particular, oh, we're jumping ahead. Going back to Superman for a moment, I think I know more about Nietzsche's Superman than DC's Superman. And I don't know, I think that term, I did a little brush up on Thus Spake Zarathustra. Read a little outline from the outline of great books published in like the early 40s. So it was like Cliff Notes before Cliff Notes. And when I read Thus Spake Zarathustra in my early 20s, I didn't get any of it. None of it sunk in. There's a couple of books that I've read in my life that didn't make any sense when I read them. But coincidentally, old Friedrich Nietzsche, he was not a fan of Christianity and had many words to say about it. And I think his will to power, not that it was a little off, but it's a yes and situation where he acknowledged, like, the will to power seems about right. And I don't know if I ever reached a point in his writing, but I may have heard this somewhere else, that the will to power sometimes attains and just becomes will. And like, I think that may be, you know, kind of like a communion with a higher power or something. Once you realize that there's nothing, no goal to be sought after, instead of the will to power seeking to ever manifest itself at higher degrees of power, you might hit a point where it's just like, oh, this is all of the power, and I don't need it all for myself. But how would one know that that position exists? And then the comparison and contrast, I think Nietzsche's will to power lines up with Schopenhauer's will to live, which is kind of like hedonism associated, but like that's our desire to breed, procreate, feel good, those kind of things. Those are kind of required. And on the flip side, the denial of the will to live being linked to like asceticism or sainthood or whatever. And brought up in conversation the other day, my buddy mentioned the concept of the call to sainthood, and that kind of resonated with me, where I realized that in order to attain Nietzsche's Superman, what is man? The bridge between the ape and the Superman. In order to attain that Superman status, you take the tension of those two opposing forces, which are both like intrinsic and necessary to developing as a human being, both the will to live and the denial of the will to live, and you take that tension and you ride it like a rocket ship. That's how you become a Superman. They're continually playing off of one another. You feel, or like as an or not an a non-practicing Catholic, you feel a tinge of guilt associated with the will to live sometimes. Why it's important to establish your own morality, where you could like see through some of the traditional, you know, the flaws in traditional morality. But so, and then that call to sainthood is like a real thing. You like, we want to be good, or like we want to do good things, but good doesn't apply unilaterally or all over. So it's got to be more specific than that. But then finding out the niche between those two where you could do both at the same time. And then there's a degree of freedom that comes inside of that too. So we don't like lose our free will, but like it's a more narrow band. Now, bringing that back to Goku, the whole point of me making this video was so that I could talk about something I learned from Goku that is, I feel like, what elevates him above the other two. That it's like practical, actionable approach. So in Goku's journeys, he's a fighter of sorts, and he goes along his way, and he meets people that seem to be adversaries or antagonists, and quite frequently, Goku uses the tactic of befriending the antagonist, and then he grows a collection of friends of people who were at one point in time his enemy. So like what that's doing is trying to improve your perspective, where you realize that the other doesn't have to be your enemy, that the other could be your friend. And as soon as we start seeing less people as the other, less groups of people as the other, groups, individuals, doesn't matter, less of the other stuff, I think, and more of like, oh, we're all in this together. How do we, and I'm not necessarily saying compromise, like you don't gotta violate your integrity to add a former adversary to your friend roster, but like, and in fact you must maintain your integrity to do so. And I think that's exemplified in Goku's actions. So as far as a moral leader, somebody with actionable role model attributes, I think Goku does a pretty good job. There's one other thing I wanted to tie in here. Oh, that, like, so our behavior, we're essentially like automata, where we don't really, for the most part, we just react to stimuli. We don't do a whole lot of thinking on our own. We pretend we do, and the amount that manifests is like tiny. So whenever you choose, like, we're programmed by movies, books, any kind of media you're consuming, that's going to get inside of you and potentially alter your behavior. Or like, I don't think you could really exhibit behavior that you've never witnessed or experienced before. You'd be way less likely to do so. So me as a teenager coming home after school and putting on Dragon Ball Z and watching Goku and the Z Fighters do things to like save their friends or defend the world or protect the weak or whatever, like all that, like that picked up where religion left off. That, like, it wouldn't have been long after abandoning Catholicism, like becoming non-practicing, and then immediately bridged the gap over to, oh, these cartoons are going to pick up on Randall's moral training where religion left off. So I kind of put my hands, or my spirituality in the hands of Japanese manga artists, I guess. All right, that's enough rambling. I'm going to go inside. Remember, you're a sovereign individual. Do what thou wilt.